Hi, welcome inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. We're doing this digital learning network, and we're talking to, I understand, second to ninth grade students out at Space Camp at Kennedy Space Center. Space Camp is cool. This guy knows because he's been to Space Camp a few times. So our guest is today is NASA astronaut Mike Fossum. He's been to space 3 times, twice aboard the Space Shuttle 121, 124, and
Right.
then once aboard the International Space Station most recently, where he spent 167 days in space aboard Expedition 28, and he was the commander of Expedition 29, and he has conducted 7 spacewalks,
Right.
and so he knows it all. So you guys, we're ready. Welcome, Mike, and thanks for coming
Thanks,
today.
Amika. It's great to be here. It's hard for me to believe that 1 year ago, right now, I was living on the space station for almost half a year. So, great experience doing that, and it's great to be home now, too.
And so we're ready for your questions.
My name is Ali and I'm from Korea. And my most memorable moment was riding the multiple axis trainer.
What's your question?
And my question was that um, what was my most memorable moment?
Okay, so your most memorable moment at Space Camp was riding the multiple access trainer. That thing is kind of crazy. I've ridden that multiple access trainer at down there at Space Camp. For me, my most memorable moment, probably there's a lot of them, but probably it was kind of similar to what you had, and it was coming home in the Soyuz spacecraft. Very different. The space shuttle came in and landed like a great big airliner, very smooth. Coming home in the Soyuz was a lot more exciting. It got you kind of twisted and tumbled around like you did on the trainer there, as the parachutes are opening, and it's kind of like whipping it around like a ball on the end of a string. And so the multiple access trainer that you used actually was a very realistic kind of training for the dynamics that we felt during when I came home just before Thanksgiving.
Great question. Next.
Hi, my name is Kaylin, and my question is, how do you feel about your job, and how long did it take to be an astronaut?
Oh, that's great. I love my job, and it has been a dream of mine since I was probably about your age. I was 12 years old when I really was laying on a hillside at night looking up at the stars, and I felt like we're not just looking at the stars, but we're in the stars. And that's when were landing on the moon right at that time. And I said, you know what, I want to do that. And I would dream about doing that. And I never completely gave up on that dream as I continued through my high school and college education, and then different jobs along the way. So it did take me a lot of years. I applied multiple times, more than once, to be an astronaut before I was selected. But it was absolutely worth the hard work along the way, and I wasn't waiting. I didn't get selected the first, second, or even third time. But I wasn't waiting. I was working hard at the different jobs that I had, and trying to contribute to the space program in different ways until I was finally selected. And now I've really enjoyed it a lot. I'm very fortunate to have gone into space 3 times, and now I'm helping the people that are going into space, that are flying on the space station right now. We have 2 Americans, 1 Japanese, and 3 Russian living on the space station right now, and so I'm helping them out with their mission and getting the next crews ready to go. So I'm still enjoying my job a lot.
Great work, question. And so hard work and a little bit of patience pays off. Next question.
Um, I'm Caleb. I'm from Roseburg, Oregon, and my question is: Are you glad that you did all the training so you could be an astronaut?
Oh, sure, Caleb. The training's a lot of work, and we call it a lot of work, but there's parts of it that are a lot of fun too. Now, part of it's sitting in school, sitting in astronaut school, literally, where we have teachers that come in and teach us about the detailed technical details in different systems, spacecraft systems, but then you get to not just learn about it, book learning, but you get to go and actually operate it in trainers and maybe to learn how to you study in classroom about how the robotic systems works, and then you go work on trainers where you're moving simulated robotic arms, and then you go out into space where you're actually moving the robot arm to do different tasks. And so it's a great experience, and it definitely is worthwhile. And the training itself is a lot of fun too, because there's a lot of different things associated with it. I like to learn new things. I like to do new things, and so there's a lot of new things to learn and do.
Another good question. We're ready for the next one.
My name's Andy, and I'm from Pound Ridge, New York. And my question is, what parts make up the International Space Station?
Oh wow, Andy, that's a great question. The International Space Station is huge. It's longer and wider than a football field when you include the whole thing. And when you first look at it, I mean, probably one of the first things you see are these great big arrays, these panels that are out on the ends. They look gold colored. And those are the part that grab sunlight and turn it into electricity. And those generate all the electricity that we need on the space station. And when the sun's shining on them, they make the electricity and they charge up some batteries. So when we're in the Earth's shadow, we're using that electricity from the batteries to keep things going. And then you see the can parts. They look like individual pieces of like silver cans that go together to make the pressurized parts of the space station. And that's where we live and work. And those individual cans, and they were sized, most of them were sized to fit in the cargo bay of the space shuttle. And so they filled up that cargo bay of the shuttle, and the shuttles would go up to the station, and we'd add a new piece. And those pieces are laboratories, they're living modules. One of them, we kind of call it our gymnasium module because it has a lot of our exercise equipment and some stowage and stuff in there. So that's probably the biggest stuff that makes it up. There's all the things you have like at home. We have a bedroom. It's real small, and you sleep on the wall because you don't need much room. And so that's the biggest things you see when you look at the space station. Good question.
Hi, my name is Jiley. I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And my favorite thing was the space shuttle simulation. And my question is, what kind of conversations do you have on the ISS?
Oh, what kind of conversation do we have on the ISS? Well, there's several different answers to that because, like I said, right now we have crew members from 3 different countries that are living up there: 2 Americans, 1 Japanese, and 3 Russians. And so, one thing is, which language are we talking in while we're up there? And it tends to be a combination of English and Russian. Because that's just the strongest languages for the crew mix on board. Yesterday, Joe Acaba, who is of Puerto Rican descent, did an interview in Spanish, which was really a lot of fun. So he was able to reach out to a large community of people in their native tongue. We talk about work. The things we talk about are kind of the same things you talk about there. We're living with these people for up to half a year at a time. So we talk about work, we talk about school, we tell old funny stories from when we were in training together, or old stories of what it was like growing up in the United States, or growing up in Russia, or growing up in Canada, and comparing all those different kind of experiences and getting to know your crewmates better.
And it is truly an international. Today, we just had an interview with Aki Hoshide, and he did it in Japanese.
Right.
And the crew aboard have been watching the Olympics.
Oh yeah, and then the Olympics are another thing that really draws the whole world together as we're all cheering for the athletes, cheering for our home country, of course, but appreciating the great efforts of everybody.
Yep, absolutely. Good question. Next.
My name is Colleen, and I come from Fairfield, Connecticut. And my question is, how did you put the ISS into orbit?
Oh boy, how did we put the ISS into orbit? If you look at it now, it's over 900,000 pounds, and it's kind of hard to even think about what it takes to put this thing into orbit because we couldn't put this huge space station on top of a great big monster huge rocket and launch it all at once, and so we actually launched it piece by piece. It took many space shuttle launches, about 27, I don't remember exactly how many space shuttle launches to carry up individual pieces, as well as the Russian parts of the space station went up their own way. They launched the piece of space station on top of a rocket, and then theirs automatically go up and attach to it. And so we took it up one piece at a time until we got the whole thing built up there.
Right. And you actually flew aboard 2 of the space shuttles, and do you recall any of the items that you brought up? And you also
Well, the
performed
biggest one we brought up was on my second space shuttle flight. We brought up the main Japanese laboratory.
Yep.
And so it was one of the largest single elements on the space station. It pretty much filled up the cargo bay of the shuttle. And so we went up with that in the back of the space shuttle, and we attached the space shuttle to the station. And then we did some spacewalks to prepare the laboratory to install it, and also to prepare the space station, because it's not quite as easy as just plugging Legos together. Sometimes it looks kind of simple as we plug models together in different ways, but it's all very complicated, and it has to be done just right. Because once we attach that laboratory up there 4 years ago, we wanted to make sure that it was perfectly clean, because it's never going to come off again. So it needs to work for the next 20 years. So it's a great challenge, and one of the amazing things was it all worked. It worked out really well. Thank you.
Very good question. Next question.
My name is Caitlin, and I'm from Martinsburg, West Virginia. Have you had any emergencies or close calls on the ISS, and what were they?
Yes, occasionally we do. We train for a lot of different things, of course, so we train for lots of different kinds of emergencies. We haven't had any that were real scary. We trained for fires, and we have not had a real fire. We trained for leaks the air's leaking out, and we're okay there. We do train also for spilling things, because on the ground, if you spill something bad, something really nasty or toxic as we call it, it falls to the floor, and you might have a mess to clean up, but it's not that big a deal. But if you spill some acid or something in space, well, then it's floating in, and it can get in your eyes, get in your lungs and stuff, so that's much more serious. And so anything that we spill that can irritate your eyes or cause trouble, so not quite an emergency, but it's something that we take very seriously. We do occasionally, we have to move the space station, because there's a piece of space junk. Usually it's a piece of an old satellite or something that's orbiting up there, and we're orbiting together, and sometimes we get so close that we're in danger of getting hit by this stuff. And so we have to maneuver, we have to ignite the space station engines and do a little bit of an orbit change to get out of its way. And we do that about every couple of months.
My name is Kelvin. I'm from Michigan. And what is your emergency plan if an asteroid or a meteorite comes at the space station?
Okay, Kelvin. The emergency plan, the first step you do is we have a big team of people on the planet who are tracking all of these different things out there, like asteroids and comets and stuff, and pieces of satellites and rockets that are in orbit. They're tracking this stuff, and they use computer programs to predict where it's going to be in the next days and weeks ahead. And so we know we know ahead of time if it's going to come close, and that's why we would change our orbit. Now, it's possible that we could get hit by something that is too small to track, and that's one of the things we train for, and I think that's what you're getting at. So it's possible that we could get hit. Now, if we get hit by a comet, well, that's going to be bad. That's so big, that's going to be really bad. But the more likely thing is we would get hit by something that could punch a hole in part of the station, and we would get all of the people together and move away from the part of the station that's leaking and get that sealed off. Once we get everybody safe, well, then we will work with everybody on the ground and on orbit to figure out what we do next, and that will depend on a lot of details about exactly how big of a hole it is or what kind of damage it caused. But we have a lot of plans we hope we never need to use for how to make repairs or recover from those kind of situations. But the first step is keep the people safe and get them as safe as possible. So, good.
Very good question. I think we still have some time for
Yeah.
more. Next question.
Hey, my name's Alex from Virginia. My question is, what's the worst situation that you've been in?
Okay, Alex, the worst situation I've been in was probably during my space station mission last June. There was a piece of junk that they identified, space debris, that was they identified its track as coming close to us. Too late for us to do the maneuver away from it, and so what we had to do was close all of the hatches on the station and kind of get into our Russian Soyuz spacecraft, and that's kind of our emergency way home. And so we got into our Soyuz spacecraft and closed the hatch, and then waited to make sure we didn't get hit, because they don't know exactly where these things are going. They don't have, especially when they're small, and so there's enough uncertainty about it, and there's enough risk associated with it that we call it hunkering down or shelter in place. And so we did that. So that's, you worry a little bit as we sit there trying to listen and say, okay, do we hear anything? Do we hear any banging? And talking to the ground, and the ground confirmed that all of the pressures looked normal, and so we waited until the time passed and everything was normal, so we went back out and opened up all the hatches.
And
no
back
big
to
deal.
work.
Back to work.
Very good question. Next.
My name's Lena Reynolds. I'm from Sacramento, California, and I was wondering, how do you go about working and communicating with other countries to keep the International Space Station international?
It's communicating with the other countries and ground control teams and even astronauts is a challenge. Most of the communications that we do on the station are with English with most of the partner countries. So the Mission Control Center in Japan and Germany and Canada all work in English, and we communicate in English with them. When we're working with the Mission Control in Moscow, we work in Russian. And so, and that's just kind of the nature of the language abilities in different places and stuff. So it can be a little bit confusing sometimes. And when I'm talking to one of my Russian crewmates, for instance, it's kind of funny. It drives my wife crazy, because I can have a conversation with one of my buddies where I'm speaking English and he understands my English well enough to understand what I'm saying, but he doesn't understand English well enough to answer me. So he'll answer me in Russian, and I understand him just fine, and then I might answer him in English, maybe a mix of English and Russian. And so it's kind of funny to listen to us talk, because we're perfectly comfortable after living together for so long, having a conversation like that.
And so an astronaut who does fly aboard the International Space Station does go through some language training, and so they learn Russian.
Oh yes, yeah, learning Russian is a requirement to learn enough to get by. And so it's actually one of the joys of it, because it's so different from the other stuff I've done throughout my career, which is focused mostly on engineering work and system development. And so now trying to use a different part of my brain to learn another language. It's very challenging, but very rewarding too, to be able to now go around another country and speak in their language and have that kind of freedom is really great. And I think a lot of people, a lot of Americans would benefit more from learning languages so they could enjoy other cultures.
Absolutely.
You don't really understand another culture until you understand some of its language.
That's right, absolutely. So if you guys are interested in learning something, even language or something like that, we encourage you to go after that.
You bet.
That was a good question. Next question.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That was the last of the student questions, but I was wondering, before you go, can you explain how you can go from a space camp student to being like an astronaut or an engineer or someone working at NASA?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, I know that all the students there at Space Camp are having a great time. It's just a wonderful experience, and you get exposed to so many different things, because there are so many things to the space business, whether you're in mission control, where we're sitting right now, or one of the laboratories around here helping develop new space systems for the future, or an astronaut in training. in other buildings around the center here or around the world. And as the students can see from their time at Space Camp, there's a lot of different things associated with this. They have things there where they can learn about neutral buoyancy, where they can learn about different kinds of engineering, where they can learn about different space science things like geology, planetary geology, comparing the geology of the Earth to that of the Moon. And now we have a new tool to learn more about the geology and the history of Mars. And all of these things are part of the body of knowledge that we're working on putting together. On the space station, we do experiments in materials, on human bodies, on chemistry, on combustion. Lots and lots of different kinds of experiments in science go into the work we're doing on the space station. So for the students today, check it all out. And when you're doing some of these different things and something really lights you up and you say, wow, that is so cool, well, go learn more about it. Go study more about it. When you get back to school in a few weeks, go ask your teachers about it. And maybe in the science classes or other things you can learn more. And a lot of you can find your future careers in these things that you learn at Space Camp where you go, wow, that's really cool. Go learn more about it, and that could end up being a college degree. It can be a career here at NASA, and there's people in the astronaut office have lots of different backgrounds, different kinds of engineering, the sciences, mathematics, medicine, lots of backgrounds. Astronauts can have many different kinds of backgrounds, and there's no one background that's better than the others. The important thing is what you really like. So follow your passion, find those things that really interest you, and go learn more about it, and study hard and be one of the best, because that's what we're looking for, is people that stand out as some of the best at what they do. And they're the best at it if they really love it right here, just as much as they love it up here. Have fun.
And be sure to thank your teachers and your mentors,
Oh,
because
yes.
they're there for you to help you learn all those wonderful things. And you have it here, Explore to Explore. Mike Fossum, it's always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks,
Any other
Amika.
questions before we cut out?
Nope. We're good. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Enjoy Space Camp.
Thank you. Bye. Mission Control Houston.